those of you listening at home who might not know what I'm doing, that is not feedback, that is me ringing some Tibetan bells. I listened to the Sunday service and realized that that sounds rather strange, actually, when you're just listening to it and you don't know what it is. Good morning, everybody, once again. Good morning, all of you now watching on YouTube, watching the video on YouTube. We're getting a lot of hits and views on YouTube, so woohoo! We're very glad that you are watching. And if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe, and then you will know every time we upload a new video. And we are getting more and more subscribers and more views. And so we are really pleased about that. Okay, so my talk today is called Depend on Miracles. Depend on Miracles. So I want to work into that just a bit. So if I'm going to depend on miracles, and if we're all going to depend on miracles, we need some sort of definition of what miracles indeed are. So A Course in Miracles actually does define miracles very frequently, and it might not be what you think it is. The most common definition of miracle in A Course in Miracles is that miracles are expressions of love. Miracles are expressions of love. And the implication is that they're observable expressions of love. That yes, there's a mental shift, but there's also a physical act that goes along with this expression of love. And this is not a commonly held view in the A Course in Miracles community. I'm going to get into that in just a little while. So I don't mean to offend anybody out there on ACIM Gather and YouTube land, but if you do the research, you will see that the most common definition of miracle is an expression of love. I will read one, and this is Miracles Principle number 1. So, I mean, it's the first thing that A Course in Miracles says about miracles. It says, and you know this, there is no order of difficulty among miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. So, miracles, they're not harder, bigger, they're all the same. They're all expressions of love, and they always have a maximal effect. As some of you may know, especially some of you there on ACIM Gather, because I know it's been discussed, but also out there in YouTube land, that Robert Perry, who is a very noted A Course in Miracles teacher, author, and I think one of the two greatest A Course in Miracles scholars there may be. I don't want to get into defining the word scholar, but people who really have studied all the versions. So he is going to be, he's finished now, he's coming up with a new edit of A Course in Miracles. He's gone back to Helen Schuckman's original notes, and then he's transcribed the notes, which is a big feat in and of itself. Took him years with a team to do this. If you've ever actually seen the notes, they are decipherable. But she scribbles here and there, and she has little symbols that she uses instead of words, so it's a little hard, and she's not real consistent about what she does every time. You can't fault her for it. She never expected anybody else to see it. But you can go to the notes, but with some work, you can decipher them. And so Robert Perry spent many years going through the notes and deciphering them, and they're kind of rough. But then he took the notes that he deciphered and created an entirely new version of A Course in Miracles based on the notes. And again, he spent numerous years on doing that. So it's due out at the beginning of January. So I can't wait to see that. Now, the interesting thing that he says in a little video that he did about transcribing the notes is that, yes, they removed a lot of the personal material that was Jesus talking to Helen, kind of just in a personal way. But many of those times, Jesus was talking about these little events that had happened in Helen's life where somebody extended love or expressed love to one another. So they were practical things that had actually happened to Helen, And then after Jesus would mention them, he would say, that was a miracle. So not only do we see in A Course in Miracles, even whatever version you're studying, that Jesus says that miracles are expressions of love. If you apparently go back to the notes and see Jesus actually talking personally to Helen, you will see that many of the times these little events that were happening in Helen's life, which were gestures of kindness or love, expressions of love, Jesus called a miracle. So let's kind of get that in our consciousness. That's what miracles are. So there's also an expression that I base the title of this talk on, and I've heard a number of A Course in Miracles teachers say this. I don't know who the first one was to say it. And they say, I don't believe in miracles, I depend on them. So I don't believe in miracles, I depend on them. And I have been in that situation or in that challenge a lot the past month or two, that I have to move beyond my belief in miracles to my real dependence on miracles, because there's so much going on in my life and in the Community Miracle Center's life that just seems almost undoable. And I have to count on and depend on the truth that there will be expressions of love and extensions of love from me and from others to us that will make all of this happen. And it is happening. Obviously the challenges here are we're moving, and we have lease negotiations. We have to get out of the current lease that we are in. And I was looking at, because we're going to have a board of directors meeting here later today to discuss this and many other topics, but it is our regular board of directors meeting. But I was looking at the minutes from the previous board of directors meeting, which was September, and I looked at the whole discussion that we had in September, and I realized how far we've come in the issues and the challenges that we identified in December to where we are at now, and how many expressions of love have been extended to us that are enabling us to really meet our challenges in a very positive way, so that there are actually now opportunities for amazing growth. And I could get into a lot of that, but that would take up the whole talk, so I'm not going to get into that. So the challenges that we identified in September are being met by all these expressions of love, and it's actually turning into something that's very, very positive that'll be a great benefit for the Community Miracle Center. Here's another place that A Course in Miracles defines miracles. And this again is Miracles Principle number 3. It's one of the principles. Miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The real miracle is the love that inspires them. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle. So once again, miracles, expressions of love. Everything that comes from love. And I really get the sense that it's every act or every manifestation that comes from love is actually a miracle. Yes, it started in our minds, but then there's an observable effect out there in the world, and it is a miracle. On Wednesday of this week, I was overwhelmed with some negative news. The lease negotiations hadn't gone the way that we had hoped. I had other serious challenges, and I have anxiety issues, and I have depression issues. I've talked about them many times. And it triggered them. And it just triggered them. And Wednesday morning, I started crying. And on and off all day Wednesday, it was one of those days when I just cried and cried and cried and cried some more. And I was just crying with worry, anxiety, sadness, and it was all there in a mess. And I want to say that what really carried me through that were all the expressions of love that people gave to me. And it took the edge off it. It didn't stop it, but it made it not quite so sharp, and it made the cut be not quite so deep. And I remembered something that, it's always been a key phrase for me in A Course in Miracles, which is, my mind holds only what I think with God. So you think about that. My mind holds only what I think with God. And I have, every time I hear that line, and we repeat that line for 10 lessons in A Course in Miracles because it goes above 10 lessons. And whenever I think of that, and I've shared this before, I think of a spaghetti strainer, you know, a colander, okay? And let's just, if you can create the image of that colander, that spaghetti strainer, and let's say we have a big container that has pearls and diamonds in it. Those are the God thoughts, the miracles, but it's also filled with water. Something fluid and amorphous that doesn't really make any sense, you know, it's formless. If you pour that in the spaghetti strainer, the water, which we're going to call, let's say, the ego thoughts, just flows through. And the pearls and the diamonds, which are the God thoughts and the Holy Spirit thoughts, they're caught in the colander. They're caught in the spaghetti strainer. They don't flow through. And there's nothing that you really got to do except allow the process to happen. And that is what I have learned really through the many years of dealing with my mental health issues that I have, is there's not a lot to do when they crop up. What you do is just whatever you can do to maybe self-soothe a little, you just wait. You just wait for the water, the ego, the formless thought to flow through. So all the fear and the anxiety is just like the water. It just flows through, and eventually you're left with the diamonds and the pearls of your God thoughts, and you really didn't have to do anything but to wait it out. And I do want to thank those of you who extended some love and acceptance to me, because you were all real miracle workers for me. So I want to express my gratitude to Reverend Deuce Althea. I want to express my gratitude to Reverend Kelly. And I want to express my gratitude to Reverend Peter. Actually, the three people that really helped me that day are right here in the room, which is pretty amazing. You extended love and expressed love to me, and I depend on that. I depend on miracles happening when I need them, and I needed them. And perhaps it didn't look like you did all that much, but you did just by being there, extending the love and acceptance and the non-judgment, and you just gave me the little handhold while I allowed the water to flow through that colander so that my mind could hold only the pearls and the diamonds or the God thoughts. Here's another place. It says, miracles are a kind of exchange. Like all expressions of love, which are always miraculous in the true sense, the exchange reverses the physical laws. They bring more love both to the giver and to the receiver. So once again, miracles are expressions of love. And they give love to both the giver and to the receiver. Here I said more love. Oh, they give more love to both the giver and to the receiver. Through the love I got from my friends and colleagues and fellow ministers, and through just giving it the time for it all to flow through, on Thursday I felt pretty good. And nothing had really changed in the external. The same situation was there that had been really bothering me the day before. But my attitude about it was different. I was thinking different. I was thinking positively, and the miracle had happened. I had been healed. Now, as I said, we're not used to calling miracles expressions of love. In the Course in Miracles community, we're used to calling miracles shifts in perception. This has been the catchphrase for decades about what to call miracles. Miracles are shifts in perception. I've heard many, many A Course in Miracles teachers and countless A Course in Miracles students say that. There is no justification for that in the material itself. There's a couple of places where it talks about shifts in perceptions. It's hard to relate that directly to a miracle. It talks about our mind needing shifts in perception in order to have a healing. I guess that would be a miracle. But there's no real direct way that is said. You have to imply that. And, it's implied, so I don't want to say it's totally wrong. And obviously a shift in perception has to happen so that you can express love to someone else. You probably need a shift in perception to enable you to do that. Possibly Reverend Deuce Althea and Reverend Kelly and Reverend Peter might have had the impulse to just say, hey, snap out of it, Tony, or excuse me, I'm busy, I got out. But they had a shift in perception that allowed them to have a real expression of love. But the miracle, yeah, there's a shift in perception there, but the way the Course really defines it is an expression of love. And there is no justification really for the shift in perception idea. And actually, I have a negative idea about that whole shift in perception thing, because I think it's kind of a cop-out. I actually think it's a cop-out. It's a way to give yourself a little permission not to do anything when you really need to be doing something. I shift my perception. I see you with love. Goodbye, I gotta go. Don't worry about it. You're loving and whole in my perception. I've shifted my perception of you. You're not going through anything bad. I can just split. And if all you're holding is the idea that miracles are shifts in perception, then that may be where you go. Remember that in the earlier edits, and I know some of you out there read the earlier edits, some of you don't, that's cool, but in the earlier edits, we are told that this process that we're on is a great crusade, and we are told that the crusade has a slogan. Obviously, I've talked about this many, many times, but I think it's crucial. The slogan for the crusade is listen, learn, and do. Listen to my voice, learn to undo error, and do something. Do something to correct it. And then he stresses it even more. He says the first two are not enough. Listen and learn is not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. The real members of Jesus' party, who are miracle workers, are expressing love in active, physical ways through active events. Here's another one. This one is real direct. Still in chapter 1. All of the quotations I've given you are in chapter 1. I mean, he's driving it home right in the beginning. And this is just, miracles are expressions of love. It does not follow that they will always have observable effects. So sometimes we extend the love and it doesn't seem to have an effect. So we have to be aware of that and ready for that. Perhaps my colleagues here were extending love and it didn't seem to have the observable effect of me not crying and suddenly being happy. You know, it didn't have quite that effect. But those miracles, those expressions of love are gems. They're the diamonds and the pearls that are stored in the storehouse or in the vessel with the water. And as soon as the ego thoughts, the water, flows through the colander, all you have left are those miracles that you were given. They're there. Sometimes it just takes a little time for that to happen. So the shift in perception thing, for me, is just not enough. It's just not enough. Miracles are really something more active. So we're going through these changes at Community Miracle Center. It's an active thing. We need expressions of love to help us get through these changes. We need some financial resources to help us get through these changes. We need more supporting members to help us get through these changes. And that's a challenge. I know that's a challenge for people to make that shift. And I'm appealing not only here to the local congregation, but also to the people who might be listening to us on ACIM Gather, and the people who are watching the YouTube video. And I just want to share my own experience of that. I don't think I've ever shared this before. So before we formed, Reverend Larry and I, the Community Miracle Center, which was like 30 years ago. So I gotta say, but it was a little bit before this, like 31 years ago. I was involved with the EST organization, so yeah, you can probably figure that out just by my personality. I was involved with the EST organization. And the EST organization was promoting something at that time called the Hunger Project. And the Hunger Project was the project that the idea to end world hunger was a reality, and we just needed to support that idea, very miracle-minded. If we shift our perception to support that idea, hunger would end in the world. And we needed the expression of love, we needed the actual expression to make that happen, which is we needed money. So the Hunger Project really was pushing for people to make a monthly donation. And I was inspired to make a monthly donation of $25. And I had never, ever done anything like that in my entire life. It's like 32 years ago. And after I did it, it freaked me out. I gotta say that for like 2 or 3 or 4 days, I was totally anxious about what am I doing? I've never done anything like this. How will I be able to afford this? I had my resources were not that large at that time. But I did it. I did it for 12 months. I sent the $25 in every month. I got through it. After the end of the 12 months, then we had formed the Community Miracle Center, so I shifted that monthly donation to the Community Miracle Center, and I have been I'm a big contributor financially to the Community Miracle Center, and I have been so for 30 years. And I can only say, these are those manifestations, that my net worth has only gone up. You know, it's gone up pretty dramatically in 30 years. It's not like a straight path. It's not like you give and the next day all of a sudden checks start arriving in the mail. But it does reinforce that idea of abundance in your minds, and that idea manifests in observable ways, in expressions of love ways. So I know that, every time I pitch for contributions or money or members, usually in the chat of ACIM Gather, there's a little, I ruffle a few feathers, and people say some derogatory things about it, and that is absolutely fine. But the truth is the truth. We need those expressions of love. We need membership. We have to handle this move. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge financially, at least at first, to do that. But we will be in a much better financial situation after we do that. And we will be able to do so much more after we do that. But we got to get through that first. So I'm appealing to the local congregation, but I am appealing to those of you on Gather, and I am appealing to those of you who are watching this on YouTube to really ask for some guidance. And remember my experience with the Hunger Project. It was really hard. It was really hard 32 years ago to do that. But I got inspired, and I did it. And I've been a big giver ever since, and my giving has just gone up, and my net worth has just increased ever since that, and it has been truly miraculous. So, one more quote. We once said there is no order of difficulty in miracles, going back to the first principle, because they are all maximal expressions of love. Miracles are expressions of love. They are events that happen from our shifts in perception. But it's the expression of love. I'm asking for people to really express love. We not only need funds, we need dedicated people here in San Francisco to help us put that service on, because we're going to have to get there early every week and set it up, and it's going to be a challenge. So we need that miracle, and I am depending on those miracles manifesting. I don't believe in miracles. I depend on them. I'm depending on the resources, financial resources, and I'm depending on the resources of the people power to make that service happen every week. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us. We're going to get amazing publicity through Reverend Rudy, through his mailing list. We're going to get musicians. It's going to be a different service. It should be a big boon for us. So find it within your heart to express love to us, to give us the miracle in whatever way you can, and please do. And for those of you out there in YouTube and Gatherland, join Community Miracle Center. We're a great organization. We have a worldwide outreach. We got a big conference coming up in 2018. Start planning for it now. Join Community Miracle Center. We would love to have you. That's my talk for today. Thank you.